14.
Zant and Zook call out in the room.
2, 2.
And filter into the room. 2 ghouls and 2 vampires rush in on one side of the door, and another 2 of each on the other, and they have swords and guns ready. As another part of the signal, a loud screeching is heard towards one side of the room, muffled by a curtain. Glass breaking and a splash are also heard in the same area. The creature turns its head slightly and looks back towards a curtain that is placed over an obvious doorway out of the area. The creature proclaims,
"Well, you know of my other way out, it still will not save you."
The guns fire in the room first, but seem to harm the creature little, as it barely braces for the impact, and rushes toward where Zook and his ghoul are waiting. Him with a shotgun. A few rounds go off before the creature reaches them, and one good swipe drops one of the fighting ghouls. Another ghoul enters the room and throws a glass jar of a liquid at the creature. It connects and it seems to start to boil into its skin, which certainly draws its attention. Its large head lowers as its nose sniffs at the liquid bubbling into its skin. It is heard in a deep rumbling and in human voice.
Hydrofluoric, that is hard to get these days, it tingles a little bit.
The creature's attention is drawn back to Zook. Another swipe rips through another set of riot gear yet again. He is using a new one after one of this thing's friends destroyed his last set, digging into his thick skin which he is able to withstand, but another makes him collapse to the ground yet again in extreme pain, not being able to move his arms or legs. Another bottle of acid is flung at the creature yet again, drawing its attention once more to a weapon that is much more effective than bullets. It quick walks menacingly towards the person who is throwing things at him, and pushes aside one of its wheeled carts of tools, but slowed down once something else is handed off to him. It is a flaming bottle. The ghoul holds the bottle to the side. The vampires took a few steps away from him. The creature's eyes widen, and it dashes away from the person with the prepared weapon. With lightning speed, the creature rushes over to Alisanne, pushing aside tables and rolling tool racks, and hides behind her table. She hasn't stopped twitching or writhing on the table but hasn't made any noise in terror. One of the ghouls on the other side throws a Molotov cocktail against a far wall, and a speedy ghoul who has the increased speed blood power rushes over along the wall, closer to Alisanne.
"You wimps, can't take me in a real fight. Hit me and you'll burn her with me."
The ghoul with a flaming bottle rushes over, and waves it in front of the creature's face. For seconds, the monster lunges towards its new enemy coming in close, but can't bear the intense heat coming closer. It holds onto the table in a show of courage and strength that most of them even partially admire, but succumbs to the deep and based fear of them all. It rushes through equipment, and tables that were either brushed aside, knocked over, or bull rushed through, getting towards the side of the wall with the thick curtain to force it open. One Molotov cocktail is thrown in haste towards the creature in the middle of the room and misses him, but another one makes it closer to him, hitting the floor near the curtain.
"I am not done with the likes of you, weak-blooded fools. I'll find you as you sleep and drain you all."
It calls this out as it rushes to the curtain and pushes them to the side. It starts awkwardly climbing with claws but can make a strange slow climb up it. It does not get more than a couple of bars up the ladder though when it looks back at its hand and smells it, which makes him instinctively look up.
"Gas, oh hells."
He climbs up as quickly as he can, as another flaming bottle hits the bottom of the ladder, igniting it in flames, and the flames climb up the ladder, which as he can now tell has a lot of gas that has been poured onto it, and some of the small cylinder walls as well, something that it couldn't tell till now. He took his hands off of the ladder and dug with his claws directly into the concrete, helping him get up quicker. The creature gets to the top of the ladder, with the concrete and metal door closed, and tries to turn the closed wheel to open it, which does not budge. He pushes his shoulder into it trying to twist the metal wheel to open the exit and push it open, but the wheel would not turn like someone is above not letting it. There is someone on the other side. Becca's one of the strongest of the known good guy crew who is holding the door closed with a crowbar as a wrenching force. The concrete door cracks a small amount from Grape pounding on it, but Becca holds the storm cellar-like escape door closed. Thud, thud, against the exit door, but the concrete holds firm with bracing muscle, on the other side. The fire climbs slowly up the ladder only partially covered in gas. Fire is one of the most potent weapons against their kind, and is something that they all feared, no matter their strength of body or mind. A wail comes from the creature's lips that none of them have heard, a wave of anger and fear from the deepest gut of the beast, that lived within them all. It calls out in an uncharacteristic higher-pitched voice.
Cowards!
Trying to force the door open, and looking back down as the flames lick their way up the cylinder exit ladder. Panic rushes from the creature's own beating heart to his active brain, pounding against the concrete. He is still unable to break free as the fire slowly reaches its feet up to reach its arms, and makes him flop back to where its claws left the walls, and its back rests against the back of the hole, its legs locking it in place. The creature screeches again as flames climb up its legs, and its tough skin is able to withstand a few seconds of extreme agony that it had never felt before. Its back leans against the walls of the cylinder. The bellow from the rest of the air left in its body echoes through the concrete escape door, and down nearly 40 feet of the ladder into a room full of ghouls and other vampires who instinctively shiver from its last call. Two halves of a tall creature fall to the ground of the ladder which is still ablaze. They can barely tell the body parts, but they have one half of the legs and waist, and the other half of crumbling ash, of body and head, all of it being totally eaten away by the all-consuming fire. Vampires call around the back for others to look around for a fire extinguisher. They look all over this floor. One of them rushes up to the third floor where they remember seeing one in a closet there. The vampires cannot get close to the cylinder curtain exit which is still on fire, but that is why they brought ghouls with them, who are in the gear to be able to handle it. It takes a couple of minutes, but the extinguisher is filtered through the hands of the crew, and ghouls were able to use it to put out some of the fire. It is expired after many years of not being used, so it is not very powerful. It worked somewhat though, they just needed to wait for much of it to die down. From what they could use though, they were able to see a crisping heap of the creature, and it is a lot of it. Even in the large fire, the mass of it alone is still in cinders. Another releases Alisanne from the table, seeing that she is still alive, well, mostly, and her blood kin seem as joyed as most of them could be, having rescued one of their own. There is little smiling, or rejoicing, many questions on how everything happened, and what the Fang were able to find out. Alisanne is having trouble speaking though, due to her mouth and jaw being misshapen, likely by the pile of ash over by the exit ladder. Not only that, she shakes her head and flinches, each time someone tries to touch her. She mumbles through her misshapen jaw, and stifles a scream when someone touches her asking if things are okay. There are dried blood tears along the side of her eyes, down the side of her face, and her wrists were bruised from shaking in restraints. Her skin is blotchy all over with red marks, her elbows and knees were out of place, and she is moaning in pain. One of her kin, one that Zook knows as someone good with mind manipulation, and even reading minds, asks her if he could use telepathy to speak, and she emphatically nods. His eyes shut, in concentration, he speaks for them both in a fashion, reading what Alisanne wants to say, but has little power over her faculties to do so.
Her skin is on fire when anyone touches it, back away.
Those touching her did back away, they were forcing her down to the table to try to help.
Her back is the least sensitive part of her body, because it is harder for that torturer to reach. He was able to increase the sensitivity of her skin, like goosebumps of pain wriggling up to her brain when anyone touches her. The muscle, skin, and bone, the feeling of it all are more painful than she has felt ever before. She is calling in her mind for help, asking for someone to stake her till it can be fixed.
The vampires around her look at each other, knowing that if she is asking to be staked, this pain was on the higher end of the scale. The request to be staked and vulnerable for any of them would be an extreme trust to any vampire. After using a good deal of blood to do some healing, Zook is barely able to move his arms or legs, stating,
"I'll do it, I have a stake ready just in case."
He gets a few judgmental looks like one of the magicians who came prepared, pulling out a stake, as did Paul, and two of the ghouls.
"Oh, right, of course. It isn't like I was wanting to stake a helpless woman, I'm not weird or anything,"
he says with a foolish grin, and he puts it away. Alisanne is obliged, as a stake is plunged into her chest, stopping her from shaking around as she is being touched in any way, even by other people's movement. The air was painful. All seems to be said and done. Zook walks up next to Zant as she is checking on others, and brings up something slightly less important.
"Hey Zant, I need to move, can I crash at one of your places till I can do that?"
She nudges his elbow, and Paul, who is close by, slaps him on the back of the head. She answers back.
Are you kidding me right now?
She shakes her head, and checks on the rest of the crew. Dealing with the humans in cells is not very difficult. Even with Zook's heavy wounds from a big claw mark to the chest, he is able to manipulate humans without much of an issue. They are all taken upstairs out of the bunker. To their recollection, they were taken for an experiment by the government and put here, at least that is what they all believe. Some would be given some money under the table if they would not speak about it to anyone, and none of them remember, after some time with Zook. Paul and Zook work together to make sure they do not remember anything, with Paul having the ability to dig through their minds to make sure they would know nothing, and Zook blocking out and clearing what they wouldn't want to remember anyway. They seem to be a decent team working on this sort of project since they were both good at it. Nearly half were in the cells for so long and had no family that would know of them being gone. They were going to be kept and nursed back to health among the city vampires, and treated well for later, perhaps becoming people for them to be fed upon for a while. Or, perhaps they would let them leave and no longer deal with the horror of their recent lives. Well, everyone's gotta eat, right?